All right. So welcome, Sales Revolutionary. Jeremy Miner here today, founder of the podcast Closers Are Losers. My guest today is known as the pioneer of men's hair styling. Thank heavens we have somebody. He's the founder of companies Pureology, Colorproof, Sebring, Abba, and Markham. Hopefully I'm pronouncing everything right. And has done over $1.2 billion in retail sales in those companies. He started off as a barber, eventually becoming a celebrity stylist with a client's list of names such as Paul Newman, Steve McQueen, Johnny Carson, Frank Sinatra, Robert Redford, just to name a few. Jim quickly found that he has a gift for detecting needs in the market and what products to bring to solve those problems. He became the first company to bring to the market natural-based, carcinogen-free, color-protecting hair care formulas. Thank you. I don't want any chemicals in my hair. Thank you very much, Jim. He's also been recognized as a winning many awards, prestigious awards such as Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year for consumer retail products in the 2019, I believe it's called Intercofure Lifetime Achievement Icon Award. He's also been inducted into the Ernst & Hall Hall of Fame, Professional Beauty Association, the PBA, the North American Hairstyling Awards Hall of Leaders, the NAHA. He's also been awarded the Orange County Business Journal Entrepreneur of the Year, Cosmetic Innovator of the Year, and Beauty Industry West Entrepreneur of the Year. He's been featured on CNBC, Fox Business News, my favorite, and Extra, as well as OC Business Journal, Authority Magazine, and WWD, just to name a few. What has this man not done? Have you been to Mars yet, Jim? So the best part about Jim, he's also a big philanthropist, and he supports Habitat for Humanity, National Ovarian Cancer Coalition, City of Hope, among others. He's raised over $1.3 million just for the City of Hope's cancer research and treatment programs. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Jim Markham. Jim, how are you?
Thank you, Jeremy. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Any man that loves hair like you do, has that type of success in the hair industry, is my personal friend, especially you live out in Hawaii. We love Hawaii. You know, listen, I love talking about persuasion, human behavior, business. That's what really this show is all about. We have many with thousands of entrepreneurs that follow us, small business owners, even some larger ones now, sales professionals who want to be entrepreneurs, business owners as well. So excited to have you on here. What I want to do first and foremost, just for our listeners, is maybe have you dive kind of right into your story and give our listeners really a feel for your background and how you arrived at this point in your life where you're one of the elite authorities on business and really how to come from nothing and have massive success.
Well, I came from a very disturbing background as a child. My mother was an alcoholic. I ended up getting married at 15 and had a child.
15?
15, yes. 15.
Okay, now that is young. I got married when I was like 21 and everybody makes fun of me. Now 15, okay.
Way too young. I ended up dropping out of school and went to work as a barber. My mom says, why don't you go to barber school? Uncle Clarence always did well as a barber. I says, okay. So I became a barber. At 16, I had my license and was cutting hair. I started out charging $1.50 a haircut. My first financial goal was to do 20 haircuts a day, $30 a day, $150 a week. Then I got 70% of that. So that was my goal. And that went on. Actually, I did okay. I was so young, people didn't want me to cut their hair. They said, I don't know, man, you look a little too young. I survived and I started getting really good at it. And I started winning national championship cutting men's hair. We were the founders of men's hairstyling. So back then they did a lot of hair cutting contests. So when the national championship, I won a silver medal in the hair Olympics. I met a guy named Jay Sebring, and he cut a lot of celebrities, and I took over cutting his celebrities, which was Johnny Carson, Robert Redford.
Tell me about Sebring, because wasn't he the original, as I've read some of your stuff and everything, he was the original founder of Sebring, right? So he had you out there, you'd won this national championship. I mean, obviously you're like, hey, I'm the king of the hill. This guy was charging like $50 a haircut, which back then would have been like, I don't know, $300, $400 a haircut. Now I don't even know. Tell us a little bit about what happened there.
Okay, I was cutting hair in a town in Farmington, New Mexico, and I read in Playboy. I still got the Playboy book. 1965, Jay Sebring was cutting the presidents with a pencil, drawing it out and drawing how their hair should be.
Yeah.
Big story that talked about him getting $50 a haircut. So I called Jay and I said, listen, Jay, I've won all these awards, and I told him which ones were. And I was surprised he actually took my call. Later said it looked like I might have a little promise because I had a lot of moxie. And I said, I hear you have a product line. I'd like to distribute it. I always thought selling products was a good idea.
Okay.
He said, why don't you come out here and let's see? And I said, listen, if you don't have a better technique than mine, we'll use mine. He said, well, you got a lot of confidence in yourself. And I said, well, I've won all these awards. He said, why don't you come out? So I went out, and we got Van Johnson was one of his customers.
Okay.
And he cut half the head, one half. I cut the other half. Of course, his side was.
So it was a competition. So you're cutting one side of the head. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
I was using the razor and he was using the shears, and he proved beyond a doubt a shear cut is better than a razor. And he were cutting shape into the hair, and I was following the shape of the head, which was wrong. I could do something he could teach me. So I agreed to do a franchise, and I put a franchise in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Sebring franchise. And I became a real big student of Jay's, and I learned his technique in and out. I would fly a month to see Jay in Hollywood from Albuquerque. And he always said, if anything ever happened to me, I want you to take over, because I was really the only one to do what he was doing. I was a licensed pilot at the time. I had a plane.
But you were like the Luke Skywalker. He was the Yoda, and he was teaching you all these techniques. You know, it goes to your character, because a lot of people in your position that might have won that type of award might have had so much ego that they just couldn't see that maybe there was a better way. Maybe there was somebody that could teach them something. That's a big stumbling block for a lot of business owners and young bud salespeople that think they know everything, is they're just unwilling to learn anything advanced.
That's exactly right. I was very willing to promote Jay, who was the man at that time. I went out and I was opening, I opened about 100 salons, didn't own them. We just got certified them, and they used the name and they used the technique, and they sold the products. Okay. And so when he got killed, I was the only one that could do that. And he was like the front man. He was the guy, get the publicity. And I was like the mechanic doing all the work and
driving everything. Okay. So I'm going to come back to some questions about your background, but you wrote this book that has a lot of buzz, Big Lucky, right? It's serial entrepreneur Jim Markham's secret formula to success. To whom was this book written for? And really, why did you write it? Like, what's behind it?
I've had friends and families that knew me since the early days that would keep saying, we know where you're from. We want you to say how you got to where you're going. Because I had a pretty successful career. Yeah. And people need to know how you did that. Yeah. And we made it for all entrepreneurs trying to be successful, that get up and sometimes get knocked down. And that's part of it. You're not going to just go straight up. You're going to get knocked down. And getting back up and going for the gold and winning is something that I've always believed, that God made us to win. He didn't make us to lose. We have to choose to lose. Yeah. So that story and the ups and downs, I had, 3 ups and 3 downs and stumbling blocks, but I didn't let it stop me. And it's kind of proof that you will have ups and downs, but just keep swinging, man. You can do it. You're made to win.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. I think, it's like the parable of the talents, right? Like God gives us all talents, but most people, because of fear, bury theirs in the sand. Whereas people like you take that talent, expand on it, and learn from it and grow from it. And that's why you have so much success. But definitely, I believe God means for all of us to succeed and have happiness in our life, for sure. Let's talk about Paul Newman. You said in your book that Paul Newman told you were the big lucky. What's the story behind that?
Paul was such a great guy. Him and Joanne, his wife, was such a great guy. And I cut his hair for years, and I went racing with his Formula One in Lancaster. And, we was talking one day, and he said, how did you do this? Kind of like a father. How did you do this? And he was curious about how my career was. And I kind of told him the whole thing. And he said, Markham, he said, I'm going to call you Big Lucky. You're Big Lucky. He said, 3 kinds of luck. There's bad luck, there's luck, and there's big lucky. And he said, you're big lucky. I said, yeah, you're big lucky too. Which he started called Serious Fun for disabled children.
So he called you the Big Lucky.
Yeah, called me Big Lucky. So later when we wrote the book, I thought there was nothing more fitting than what Paul had called me was Big Lucky. And, a lot of people are Big Lucky. They just got to grab it. You can be Big Lucky. Of course, you got to do the work.
You just learn the right skills and you do the work, and you're inevitably going to have success for sure. Now, in your mind, this show's tailored really to a lot of, like I said, entrepreneurs, sales professionals who want to sell more of their products and services. In your mind, why is it so important for somebody to have the ability to be able to sell in today's competitive world?
You're always selling. First time you get up in the morning, you say, good morning, darling. From the time you get up in the morning, and if don't develop a skill and a charm for it, you're not going to go very far. You have to be good at translating and giving your message in the proper way.
I totally agree. We call that non-sales selling. So even if you're not, in sales per se, like if you're not getting paid a commission You're not a salesperson. I mean, obviously business owners are obviously salespeople, right? Because you're promoting your products, your services, your brand. Everybody, I think really in our day and age is in selling or has to be, right? They have to learn those skills. So, whether you're an employer, let's say you're a young budding entrepreneur that's listening to Jim right now, if you're trying to get your employees to catch your vision of where you want to take your company, well, you're trying to persuade, you're trying to convince, you're trying to influence, you're trying to move others, right? If you're an employee trying to convince the boss to give you a pay raise, if you're going to the Sebring guy back in the day, trying to convince him to meet with you, you're doing the same thing. You're trying to persuade, you're trying to influence. I mean, if you're an attorney trying to convince the judge that your client's innocent, you're trying to persuade, influence. I mean, look at all the politics going on. If you're trying to get people to vote for you, you're in the game of persuasion and influence. So really everybody in our day and age is trying to convince, they're persuading, they're trying to influence. So it's a skill that if you really learn and master, it's going to take you so far in your life.
Absolutely, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. You have to do it.
Yeah, 100%. And especially, and we're going to talk a little bit about this gap you saw in the market with men's hair, because sometimes most people don't even know they have a problem until they're introduced what that problem might be, especially men probably back in the day. One question I do want to ask before we go down that path, what do you feel are just a few big mistakes that young entrepreneurs make when they're trying to sell their product or service in the beginning? What's a couple big mistakes they make?
I think misposition their product or not understanding the primary importance. Generally I do primary importance, secondary, and third, and to focus on the main reason that they should buy your product. Solve a problem. You need to solve their problem like no one else can do. And I think that's really important to make their life easier, make them more money and everything become more profitable. If they get that part, you probably make the sale. Right.
You're helping them. We call that problem finding and problem solving because, most prospects, especially back in the day, men didn't realize they had a problem, right? Or maybe they thought they had a problem, but they didn't know how bad the problem really was, if their hair was that bad, or maybe they didn't know the consequences of what would happen if they didn't solve that problem. And through your branding and your position, your marketing, your selling, you were able to see that not only did they have a problem that your hair looks like crap, but, oh, by the way, you're not getting as many dates as you want. You're not rising up in the business world like you want. And these things, a lot of people just don't think until somebody introduces it to them. So I agree 100%. Let's talk about, anybody that's done $1.2 billion with a B in sales is really good at putting together a team that is really sales driven. And when I say sales driven, I'm not talking about Wolf on Wall Street, like, scream at them, posture them and put them down. What I'm talking about is a sales team that's able to help people see that they have problems they didn't think about or even know about, like we just talked about. What were some creative ways and things you did to really attract such a great sales team to sell your products?
In the beginning, we had to go out and personally look for them and, of course, tell them and build a culture. Right? First thing I'd say, build a culture. We had a great culture, very positive, and they saw it as opportunity to grow. But annually, we would go and do a convention in Las Vegas, and we'd invite all the companies, not just our people, but everybody else's people, so they could see what a good environment we had, and we encouraged them to come. So if they ever changed position, they'd come to us. So we created that environment, and that was really positive. And then we might have someone call them and ask them if they're interested in advancing their career. Always give a positive note on their working for us would be better for their career long term. They could grow. We also gave a little bit more money than anybody else too, which we believe is really worth it.
Tell us why you did that. What was the positioning behind that? What was your idea behind doing that?
Well, if you're going to be competitive, you'd have to match it. If you're going to offer something a little better, it would be a little better, a little more money, and perhaps more potential opportunity for bonus. So we found that as a great incentive to hiring new people. And it doesn't have to be that much more, just a little more.
Yeah, I even find it in building very successful teams from what we've done and what I've done so far is that it's not even necessarily it's the money, it's just the recognition. Especially salespeople, they really respond to recognition and awards and trophies and things like that might cost your company a little bit of money up front, but just that recognition for most salespeople, I think is really important that they know that the business owners and that management is really appreciative of what they do, can go a mile. It can just really drive your sales force, even besides money, for sure.
I think that's a great point. You just brought something up that I've always done too, is, some people are driven by the title and some people are driven by money. Sometimes offer them a position between a bigger title and more money, and they'll take the bigger title. that was something we always did as well. So we want to find out what their goal was, where they want to go, and then we try to figure out how they can do it in our company.
So what you're saying is you were collaborative. So it wasn't like, hey, you go out there, make us some money and we're going to pay you a little bit back, but you were like collaborating with your salespeople where they caught the vision of really where you wanted to go with your business and your company, and they were responded to that. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And I always wanted to tell them our story, which always made it a point of knowing what my competitor's story was as well. So I'd always paint a better picture, or I'd paint our picture, which is generally better than our competitors, because I think we was really good at doing that.
Well, let's talk about Pureology for a second. So that, I mean, you obviously did exceptionally well, right? How did you build that brand? Like, how did you really start that and really get a sales team to really push that out in the market?
It took about a year to put it together from the formulations, and we knew they were best. We tested them. We could prove it against any other competitor. We did great packaging and great naming. And then we went to BBSI. They have once a year, all distributors get together and manufacturers. And then you have an opportunity to talk to distributors and tell your story. And then you're trying to give them a territory within the United States and Canada that they cover. And that you're trying to put this puzzle together. Okay. And that's how you start. And then you get this 1 or 2 or 3 distributors to give you a recommendation of their friends. Okay. And then you call them and follow up and start filling the puzzle in. So usually in the US for us, it was about 25 distributors, usually 3 to 5 distributors. Okay. And once you get distributors, then you start adding salons to those distributors to build your business up. That's how we did it.
Okay. You know, my neighbor lives down the street in the area that we live in. He owned like 58 salons here in the Midwest. And I called him right before and he's like, I know that guy from Pureology, blah, 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 blah. So you're famous. I like it. Okay. My neighbor knows you.
We've been around a long time. I've been doing this for 50 years, had 5 companies. We founded over 50 years. And I had a couple of interests in a couple other companies. Alterna was one of them. And Sexy Products was another. Okay. But I've been doing it a long time.
I like it. All right, let's talk a little bit about your sales team. So your sales team's performing you. I think, for a lot of our listeners that are like startups, entrepreneurs, they might have 2 salespeople, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 salespeople or so. Haven't got big yet. They're just starting. But how do you keep your salespeople loyal to your company and still wanting to produce like year after year?
Well, I think you got to have interaction with them. You got to communicate with them. You got to discuss goals and discuss problems. And you got to be really interested in how they're doing and communicate that to them. If they're having a problem, I used to go out with them in detail and call on accounts with them. And if they said, well, I can't open that because they threw me out of the place, say, well, let's focus on some of those and see how to deal with it. So I try to lead by an example. And I did a lot of detailing and opened a lot of accounts myself. But then they start getting it when they see, a few successes. Right. They get it. But I communicated with them regularly. I called them weekly. Okay. And we brought them in every 3 months. And you got to stay active, got to be involved.
So just really collaborating with them and getting in the trenches, getting your hands, some would say, a little bit dirty yourself, like actually doing some of the work like they do. I think that builds a lot of loyalty. How do you get others to believe in your products? And I want to preference this by asking this. So in the 70s, right, you come out with these men's hair products. At that point, it wasn't, I think 80% of the market was women, right? So how did you get men to really catch on like, hey, I need to style my hair, like I need to look good. Like how did you do that?
They were very resistant. And with Real Cream was a choice product back then. They'd wash their hair every week or 2 and then down to a pompadour.
Wow.
And they didn't want to change, by the way. You'd have to say, listen, you got to trust me on this. I want to wash your hair. I want to cut it the way it grows and show you a better shape and a better way to do your hair. And you can wash your hair daily and take care of it, which you could never do before. Shampooing daily was a key part of it, because if they couldn't wash hair daily and duplicate it, it didn't work. So we just had to be persistent, and getting a lot of publicity back then from cutting Newman, Redford, Carson, McQueen was real helpful. As Steve McQueen does it. Yeah. Jim Markham does Steve McQueen. Jim Markham charges $55 haircut, but here I only charged $10. So we had the $55 haircut for a whole lot less at your Markham Style Innovator shop. So we sold my $55 haircut for 10 or 15, whatever they charged. And that was real effective. Once you get 1 or 2 people that really like it and can deal with it on a daily basis, they have a lot of friends and their wives like it. I mean, I've seen people go from wearing glasses and regular conservative pants. And a week or two later, they got a new car. They got their glasses, and
Sure.
they're hip guys from it. So it really was a fascinating time in life to see the psychology from them going from nerdy to hip.
In your mind, and I think you've already talked a little bit about this, but as somebody, you're looking at the market, you see that 80% of the market is women. Why did you go after men? Like, why didn't you just go the women route and try to make those products better? Like, what caused you to be like, I'm going to focus on this market and really drive it home?
Well, Sebring was a hairstylist, a cosmetologist, and he converted to the men. He started cutting, I think, Vic Damone and then later Johnny Carson. And he found there was a good niche for it. I started out as a men's hairstylist. I started as a barber. So I was doing men. There was a virgin market for men. Nobody had men's hairstyling. Nobody washed hair daily. Nobody was getting cuts like this. So it's a virgin market. And the barbers were really receptive to charging more money for their haircut and doing something better.
Yeah, it was just all about getting the prospects, in your case, men, to see that change was something good, right? Because human behavior tells us that even though people say they like change, most people don't, right? Like most people, behavioral science shows, are resistant to change, even though they say they like change, right? But they become comfortable with being uncomfortable with things that they're more familiar with, like washing your hair once a week, doing the same old over change. So it's about getting them to see that it's far more risky for them to do nothing at all, right? Keep their hair the same way, problems stay the same, than it is to get the extra money together to buy your products, to buy your services, to really get them where they want to be, which is more risky. I think you did a really good job of that.
We did a lot of demonstrations. We went on TV and showed before and after of the local newscaster. We did radio. Disc jockeys would cut their hair on the radio, and he'd talk about what I was doing on the radio.
Okay.
And so, he'd say, well, Jimson, what are you doing now? I'm in the front here. I'm cutting the front part of your hair. And so that was kind of funny that you get attention. Usually, I think a lot of the women would send their men in and say, hey, you got to try this out. Okay. So appealing to the women to send their man in was really important. But a lot of demonstrations, we might have 10 people come in and say, look, I'm going to cut this. I want to show you what I'm going to do to you. And they'd see it. And they're pretty receptive. But I mean, they're hardcore. Men do not want to pay much money for a haircut.
Sure.
Women pay a lot of money for a haircut. Men will buy guns, they'll buy cars. They do not want to pay much money for a haircut. Right. And then Supercuts came in and charged $6 haircut for a haircut. And it kind of blew the fine hair cutting.
Sure.
I think it's a little detrimental to buy fine haircut. So we taught fine hair cutting across the nation and Canada.
Well, I want to ask you this, because I think you did an excellent job. If you look at the price, and I'm not sure what the price was, 10, 20 years ago, 30 years ago of Pureology products, but now, they're, probably 5, 6, 7 times more than like regular shampoo or whatever that you can buy at Walmart or Target. So how did you get your customers to think more results-based thinking rather than price-based thinking?
Well, you got to sell that. You got to explain it. You got to create a value. And one of the things we did was I created for Pureology. Okay. Actually, Abba did. I didn't claim it was Abba, but I developed an ingredient called sulfate-free. Okay. Sulfate-free was a milder surfactant that does the same thing as sulfate, but more gently. Okay. And it was carcinogen-free, it was salt-free, and having that, and you keep driving that home as something better for your scalp, better for your hair, keep your color in longer, and better for everything. And then other ingredients that made it perform a lot better, but we could demonstrate it. We could do it side by side against another shampoo. And we did before we went out. We knew we had a better product.
You could help them see things they just didn't know, right? You don't know what you don't know, right? A lot of these men probably didn't know they had a problem. They didn't know about the shampoo. I was reading about some of your products, how, a lot of shampoo has like animal products in it. I literally had no idea. I buy Pureology and other products that are probably more expensive than a lot of guys. I didn't even know that. So how did you educate the public to put in something in their mind that they didn't even know?
You got to explain it to them. We always said, listen, an animal does not have to die for your product to live. There are other ingredients that are as good or better than animal ingredients that you just don't have to kill anything for that product. We say animal ingredients comes from hoofs, hides, and animal organs, or from plants, flowers, leaves, roots, and berries. It's your choice.
Yeah, which one do you want on your head?
So the decision pretty easy for them.
Okay, I can see that because I buy this stuff because it just performs better, like better results, right? But I did not know that some of the cheap stuff had animal stuff in it. I think if any man knew that, for the most part, unless they're, a hunting guide in Montana that just doesn't care, I think most men would be like, okay, I'd rather have the plants and the berries and the herbs in my hair rather than like organs of an animal. It doesn't make any sense.
That was an easy sell, really.
Yeah, I'd say so. Okay, so what's one important question that in your mind, every entrepreneur should be asking themselves before they start their own business?
Well, let's preface that with if they already know their business, then they need to learn all the ins and outs of that business, but they also need to learn all the ins and outs of their competitors. The competitive business is what they're going to compete against. So they need to find out what they're going up against, and then they can build their unique selling proposition or USP to compete with it. So let's say the other competitor is faster service. Well, you need to have faster service with something, maybe a donut with it or whatever, some perk that goes with it. If that's theirs, then you need to create something better, faster service.
How did you do that with Pureology? Like, can you give us an example just so everybody can kind of see to take action on that? Like, what did you do with your competitors with Pureology? Like, how did you do that with that company?
Okay, one of the things we did was we created the name Pureology, which was two words put together and we trademarked. That's a science of pure. We also did it with Colorproof, which was my last company called Colorproof. We created a name called Anti-Fade. That was on the shampoo. We also said sulfate free, which was an advantage. They didn't know it was an advantage in the beginning. And we said we had a superior color protection on every bottle, longer lasting color guaranteed on the back of every bottle. So they looked at the front, Anti-Fade formula, superior color protection. So what a customer does when they pick up a bottle, they'll look at it, they pick it up, they smell it, they turn it over and look at the back. They see the front, the back, and they smell it. If they don't like the smell, they put it down, it's gone. So we created a billboard in the front, the back, and on top. So we had longer lasting hair color guaranteed, anti-fade complex, longer lasting color guaranteed. So it was all about color protection, that we would keep their color in longer than anybody else, or it's guaranteed.
Okay, so problems that they could recognize. Maybe they've tried another competitor's product, but it didn't keep their color that long. So when they see, hey, this is going to guarantee keep your color in long, that might have hit home with a lot of your market.
Big time. That was a very, very big selling technique. And we were first to market with that. And then I did it again. The next company after that was Colorproof. We did it again. Wasn't as effective the second time around because we weren't first, but it worked. It still worked. And we also had a longer lasting color. Those are big two key points because nobody offered that. I do see a few downloads saying longer lasting color guaranteed, but that's a key point.
That's interesting. Okay, so you got big, obviously you did $1.2 billion in sales. How did you fine tune your craft though? Like once you really stood out as really the market leader in men's hair, how did you continually improve that brand to stay on top?
Well, actually I had Sebring for a few years and then I sold it and then I created Markham products and sold Markham products. So I've had 5 different companies. So each time I did a new company, I tried to give a different USP. Different selling position. With Sebring, it was daily shampooing, non-alcoholic shampoo, milder, gentler, keep your hair better. And with Markham, very similar concept. Then with Abba is Abba Pure and Natural with herbs, leaves, flowers, vegan, no animal ingredients, not animal tested, better for you, better for the environment. And environmental. And then with Pureology, it was longer lasting color exclusively for color treated hair. One of the advantages I had with Pureology is when I did displaying and you went into a salon, I had the salon owner say, put over here, they'd have like 10 different brands.
Okay.
I'd say with Pureology, put longer lasting color guarantee right in the front there. So when a customer would come in, they'd say, look, I'm looking for a shampoo. I'd always have them say, you want it for color or virgin hair? I want it for colors, and then take them right over to Colorproof or Pureology. That was very helpful too, so that the people didn't have to figure it out, leave it up there for 10 different sections. I wanted to identify that we're exclusively for color treated hair. That was really helpful too.
Okay. Yeah, that's genius. I like that. This was a great interview. I learned a lot. I know our audience is going to learn a lot from this. Do you have any final thoughts or advice for our listeners?
Well, I think don't give up. Whatever you're doing, get passionate about your craft or whatever you're doing. If you're trying to do your own thing, Find one that you can really develop some unique USPs, unique selling proposition. Get passionate about it and find out your competitors' USPs and create your own and make it saleable. Make it and get passionate about it. Get passionate about it because you can win if you stay passionate and work like hell, because it doesn't come for free, but you are designed to win. And throughout my book, I talk about the ups and downs of winning and losing. Ultimately, we're all made to win, though. And I think if you believe that, if you understand it, that's really critical in your success. When you do fall down, you got to get back up and keep swinging.
I agree. Man is that they might have joy, right? Favorite scripture of mine. So, hey, thanks for being on here. Where can our listeners learn more about what you're up to these days, Jim? Besides, hanging out in Hawaii, where can they learn more about you?
Well, we got a book called Big Lucky that we just produced a year ago. And it's 50 years of doing companies and winning and losing and having some good results with it. It took about 19 months to write. Yeah. I'm promoting the book a lot now. I'm just kind of rehabbing from a back surgery, but the book takes a lot of time. I really like the book. It's really fun and doing talks and stuff. It's really nice.
If we got this much value out of a 30-minute interview, I can't imagine going through the book, what type of value it is. So where can they find that? Can they go to Amazon? Where's the best place to find your books?
Amazon is probably the best place to find it. Book Logic is another, but Amazon is probably the easiest way to get that, whether it's a Kindle or whether it's a voice or whether it's print.
Okay, so everybody go to Amazon right now as you're hearing this podcast, this show. Go to Amazon, get his book. It's called Big Lucky. What's the subtitle, Jim?
Big Lucky, Serial Entrepreneur Jim Markham's Secret Formula for Success.
Okay, if you want to be successful, you're an entrepreneur wanting to start a business, you've got a business, you want to scale that, you're a young bud sales professional who eventually wants to start your own business, go to Amazon right now. Get Jim's book. It's only going to make you more money. It's only going to help you be more successful. Jim Markham, it was a pleasure having you on the show today.
Jeremy, you do a great show, brother. I appreciate it a lot.
Very kind. Next time I'm coming to Kona, I'm coming over by you.
You got it, man. Anytime.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch right over here, right over here. Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're going to help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.